Hi everybody, I'm Damir Dobric from Denet GmbH, Microsoft Regional Director, and I'm here today evening with Donovan Brown after successful Azure Meetup in these months. Please introduce yourself.
I am Donovan Brown. I am the Principal DevOps Manager at Microsoft. So I am responsible for a team of DevRel people. So we're evangelists almost. We're advocates. So we go out and we speak all over the world and we talk to our customers and we take their feedback back with us to our engineering teams to make sure that they can improve our products to help our customers.
So what is your core product which you are?
Azure DevOps is the core product that I spend a lot of time on as a vehicle to get to Azure. So our main focus is getting our customers into Azure, but because we already have an amazing tool chain in Azure DevOps, my team spends a lot of time with Azure DevOps. But to be perfectly clear, if you want to use Jenkins and some other CI/CD system and you want to use, I don't know, maybe Ansible to do your deployments, my team will still help you as long as you're going to Azure. As long as you're going to Azure, my team will help you get there.
Well, I hope so.
Yes.
But I have to tell you, you're doing software development for a long time. I heard for like 20 plus?
Yeah, I
years,
started in 95, 96 time frame at Compact Computers in Houston, Texas.
Oh,
so
that's cool.
A long time ago. Yeah, so I was writing MFC applications way back then in C++. And then after Compact, I went independent for a few years because that was right around the time of the big bubble, right? The tech bubble. So everybody was just jumping around, collecting as much money as you could as you go from company to company. And then eventually Chris Menegay called me out of the blue and just offered me a job as a process consultant, which kind of got me into the Agile world and slowly into the DevOps world. And after working on a product called Team Foundation Server, which is now Azure DevOps, that's how I kind of got into Microsoft.
Now, in between Team Foundation Server and DevOps, we have one or more different names.
5 different names.
We are not going to talk about that. But it's really cool. Thank you for coming to us.
Oh, it was a pleasure.
It is really, the people are very happy to get in touch with somebody in this community who is really making these things which we use every day.
Yes. It was a pleasure. I mean, I was born here in Frankfurt, so being able to come back is really cool.
But you can talk a little bit German.
Ein bisschen. Yeah, just
can
a
you
little
say
bit.
Something to people? Can you introduce yourself in German?
Ja, mein Name ist Donovan Brown, Principal Program Manager für Microsoft. Vielen Dank für den Beitritt zu mir heute Abend.
Oh,
so, thank you for joining me today.
Das war sehr gut. By the way, he's a big fan of Wiener Schnitzel.
Yes, we're going to go get
some. Way to get the goulash this time
exactly.
right now. So, okay, let's come back to our topic. As I started to do software, I remember it was really amazing as you started to talk about all this DevOps now and what was before, and you stopped somewhere by TFS. And I was thinking like my first source control, which I was using, was SourceF.
Oh, are you SourceF too?
Yeah, it was like you put everything in a file and it's kind of working there. And now I was thinking about those times and say, hey, this is really amazing what happened in the last, 20, 25 years.
Yeah.
And we are in a time of digital transformation.
Absolutely.
Definitely. And what is digital transformation for you? What does it mean in a time of thinking DevOps?
It's a time where customers are realizing that they need to start using software no matter what industry that they're in as their like competitive advantage. It doesn't matter if you're in shipping, it doesn't matter if you're in real estate. There's probably software that you're utilizing that can actually give you an advantage over your competitors, right? Because if you can reach your customers more readily, if your application on the mobile phone is more user-friendly than your competitors, so if I'm even looking for real estate, that software is the advantage that you have. It's that digital asset that you're using to get to your customers. And what DevOps is allowing you to do is to be able to out-innovate your competition. I think the mobile phone is a perfect example. It's probably the most competitive landscape we've ever seen, because to get a new app on my phone is just a matter of minutes. You and I are old enough to remember you had to walk or drive to a software store.
Remembering me. Yeah.
And then you have to go to the store, buy CDs or floppy disk and shove it. It was a big deal to buy software. But now on your phone, most of them are free. It just takes a second to get. So I'm not going to tolerate an application that doesn't satisfy me. I'm going to uninstall it, give you a bad rating, and then go get something else. So what you have to do when you're deploying software or developing software is make sure that you succeed very early and often so that your customers stay your customers. And to me, that's a lot of what the digital transformation is about, is enabling companies who historically have been deploying once or twice a year to be able to deploy far more regularly and far more frequently, but not deploy crap, right?
That's true.
Yeah, you want it to still be high quality code delivered on a very regular cadence so that your customers have confidence in what you're delivering. So that to me is what it is.
This is definitely. How big is the team of all these DevOps service?
Gotcha. So Azure DevOps Service is about 50 feature teams, and the feature teams have between 10 and 12 people on them. So we're talking about 600, 700 people that across the world. So some of those teams are in Raleigh, North Carolina. Some are in Redmond, Washington, our headquarters. We now have some of them in San Francisco and a large number of them in Hyderabad, India. And those encompass all the teams that build all the services that you see inside of Azure DevOps.
And what is your experience? It's not small teams. We are talking about 60 plus, 600 plus people.
Yeah, it's huge.
And I have a lot of customers and friends and people, more or less everybody in my life is doing something with software. And we are discussing always about thinking, hey, is it advantage to have so distributed teams on 4 places on the earth? I understand. For that team? And different time zones. Is that problem or is it advantage?
I would say it can be challenging, but I don't think it's something that you should avoid if that's the best way for you to get work done. Because if you think about it, because we're that global, we have someone working on our product 24 hours a day, not just Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. 24 hours a day, there's innovation.
Seems to be advantage.
At sometimes, but there's challenges there. Because if I'm depending on a team that's in India, there's an 8-hour delay for me getting that feedback that I need to know if they're where I need them to be, or are they going to deliver what I need to deliver? How do I communicate with you for our sprint reviews and things like that? So there's challenges there, but those challenges can be managed because we've been doing this for 7 years now, and we do simple low-tech stuff like email. We use email very effectively to be able to share our status of one team that the other team can see when they wake up. So they get an email that has what we delivered our last sprint, what we plan to deliver the next sprint, and a video that shows them our product or our feature working as if they had been in our sprint review with us. So
it means your production process never sleep.
Never.
Oh, how about you?
Rarely, especially now that I'm a little jet lagged. I'm probably going to be up a lot tonight. But it's a process that's running 24/7 because our service runs 24/7. So we actually have people on call 24/7 to make sure that service is running. So it's a very exciting time to be in software. I'll put it that way.
Definitely. I'm saying that all my life.
It's true. Exactly. Because at that time, it was the most exciting, and you realize that innovation just doesn't slow down. Because I remember when I was programming at Compaq, I thought it was the most exciting time to be in software. And you find yourself saying that over and over again because now there's just a whole new wave of stuff to get excited about.
Yes, definitely. Tell me, what kind of model do you use? Sprint, Agile?
Yeah, so
waterfall.
Definitely not waterfall. we are definitely an agile shop on the Azure DevOps team. Right, we run in 3-week sprints. Right, and the teams do daily stand-ups. They do their sprint reviews or retrospectives sometimes. Okay. Yeah, 3-week sprints. And the reason why is because we tried several different cadences. We tried 2 weeks, and when you do a 2-week sprint, it can sometimes feel like there's more rituals and more ceremony than development. Right, because you got to do your daily stand-ups, you got to do your retrospectives, you got to do your planning meetings.
Very religious thing.
Yeah, we do all the rituals, and when you do all the rituals, a week or 2-week sprint, it feels like you're constantly in meetings. Now we also tried 4-week sprints, and 4-week sprints are really hard to estimate. Right, people are pretty good at telling you what they can get done in a week, 2 weeks, maybe even 3 weeks. But once you start to get to a month, what you think you're going to get into that 4th week, you're just guessing, and you may or may not get to it. So why are we even trying to develop for that long when our estimates aren't that good anyway? And another problem that we had was you constantly want to try to put a 4-week sprint into a calendar month, and it never fits. Right? You never start on January 1st and end 4 weeks later and still.
So this is why you pick 3 weeks.
You get away from that. Yeah, you get away from that completely. Now it's a 3-week sprint, and you're thinking in that mindset. You're better at estimating, and you feel like the amount of ceremony to development is a fair comparison because you're actually developing more than you're in those ceremonies at that point.
Cool.
So it works for us, but don't assume that you should go off and do 3-week sprints. Right? Everyone needs to do the necessary analysis of their environment because there were a time where I was doing software for stock traders. You can't make a bet a month out on the stock market, right? That needs to be something that you can inspect and adopt very rapidly. In that scenario, we were running 1-week sprints because we needed to be able to adapt to the market very, very quickly. I've also written medical software where our stakeholders were actual physicians, and we couldn't get them to come and look at our software any more frequently than once a month. So it worked out perfectly for a 4-week sprint. So I tell everybody, look at the external dependencies that you have, look at the environment in which you're working in, and then choose the right sprint length for your team. But don't choose 3 weeks because you heard someone else was using 3 weeks.
That's good. There's another question. Most of our customers, when we talk about DevOps and how to ship the product and so on, we start to think about different environments. So test, dev, etc., and there is a release. How many environments do you have?
That's interesting. So in our production environment alone, we have 5 rings, is what we call it. Actually, we have 6 rings because it starts with ring 0 and goes to ring 5. So there's 6 rings that we deploy to. Those are all production rings, right? So it's not as if we have a temporary environment called the Go Big environment, which is sort of like a dev environment. But we're really unique in the fact that our dev environment is the actual environment we work in, because as the Azure DevOps teams use Azure DevOps to build Azure DevOps.
It's cool,
kind of, yeah, it's really neat, but the product that we produce is the product that we use to produce that product. And ring 0 is actually where that team actually lives. So whenever we deploy every 3 weeks, the very first ring that gets it is ring 0, and it sits there for 48 hours, and that's the Azure DevOps team using the latest bits of Azure DevOps to do their job. If we can't survive 2 days in that product, we don't let anyone else in the world see it. And what we do is we go back in, we'll put in hot fixes or whatever changes we need to. We'll let it sit in that environment again. And if and only if it survives with us, will we then send it out to our regional directors, to our MVPs and our what we call them, our friendlies, right? These are people that know.
Yeah, the people who don't cry me.
Exactly, right? They understand they're getting pre-release bits. They understand that that we're testing in production. And then if it survives that group of friendlies, it goes to the first environment that actually has paying customers on it. And then what we do is we're closely watching our telemetry. We're making sure that we don't see any issues or performance issues. And as it survives each ring, it goes to the next ring and the next ring and the next ring until it goes out to all 6 rings, which takes about 10 days from start to finish.
How is this related to branches?
They're all good questions. So the rings are environments. They all are taking the exact same bits of code from the master branch. So what we do is we only build once and we deploy multiple times. I'm not a fan and I don't promote like having a dev branch that deploys to one environment and then you merge into a QA branch that deploys to another environment and then you merge into a production that I don't encourage that, because every time you merge into that next branch, you could potentially be picking up changes that were made directly in that branch. Follow what I'm saying? Just because you didn't get a merge conflict doesn't mean there weren't changes in the QA branch that weren't in the dev branch. So
definitely, yeah.
Exactly. So now all of a sudden, what I think I learned from my dev branch might not be true anymore, because there could be an interdependency between the changes that causes something to fail in QA that didn't fail in development. So what you want to do is you want to verify the actual binary. And once you do, just move that binary through the pipeline, knowing that you're verifying the same bits. If you're merging every time, you really don't know until you get to production if everything's okay or not. So why did I waste time deploying to dev and QA, since I could potentially be deploying completely different bits because I did a hotfix in production that isn't in the other branches, right?
So you use only one master branch?
We have one master branch, and then when we get ready to do a deployment, we do cut a branch for that deployment, right? And that is the code that goes out, because we will make hotfixes there that we then repeat in our master branch. Right. That way your master branch doesn't have to stop while you're doing a 10-day deployment like we do on the Azure DevOps team.
10-day deployment.
Yeah, it takes 10 days because you remember every one of those 6 environments, it actually sits there for at least 24 hours, but in some cases 48 hours. So 6 with a 24-hour break in between and a 48-hour break in the beginning is about 10 days.
So when you make some mistakes, you see you next 10 days.
It can be. Now it's interesting. If we have a hotfixes can actually go through that pipeline in 2 hours. So if it's a critical hotfix that we have to get out into production, we will shorten the time that it sits in each ring, but we still do a safe deployment. We would never deploy a hotfix to all 6 at the same time. We would still deploy it out so that we can test it in each environment, but the amount of time it stays in each environment is much shorter.
How many pull requests do you have per day?
So with a team of 600 developers working 24 hours a day, we average on average we do 600 pull requests a day. So that's short-lived feature branches all requesting to be pulled back into master, and on average we do about 600.
So that means everybody is committing once a day?
Yes. And the way that we're able to do that is we use a technique called feature flags. So that you can actually go back in. So what historically happens is if I have a request or a feature that's going to take, let's say, 2 sprints to produce, Historically, what you would do is you would create a branch for that feature, and that branch would stay isolated for 2 weeks. While master's moving, this feature branch is moving, and when they finally come together, it's what we call a merge bomb. There's so many conflicts, it's hard to, exactly. Now, the way that you can mitigate that is you constantly merge back into master, and you do a synchronization between two branches as often as you can, hopefully every day. But the question is, then how do I take code that's not finished and merge it into master without breaking everything? The way that you do that is you introduce a concept of a feature flag. A feature flag, when it's introduced, is off, which means that the original code still runs. The code that you're trying to add is not accessible to anyone, but I can merge it into master immediately, because even if you do release that code out into production or deploy that code, that feature is still turned off, so no one knows that the code is there. All I have to make sure is that the code compiles. The code doesn't even have to be finished in the branch that I'm in the feature that I'm working on. Eventually, 2 weeks from now, when we're actually done, we're actually going to merge it again and then push it out into production and then turn the flag on. And now people can see that new functionality that we want. If something bad were to happen, what's really cool is to turn it off, you just turn the flag back off. I don't have to roll the system back.
Do you know implementation details, how that really works?
Yeah,
I switch off that part of code which compiles, but it's not.
Yeah, so what happens, the way that we implemented it is that we actually have a SQL Server database that has where you register your flags. So the flags are basically just rows in a database, and the value is either true or false. And then in our code, we basically have an if statement that reads that value from that external source. And if the value is true, we run path. If the value is false, we run the other if statement. So it literally...
So this is you build in the code, this feature flag.
Exactly.
So something like in C#, if that, then...
It's just an if statement. Yeah, a feature. We call it feature flags as a concept, but if you boil down to it, it's an if statement.
That is very interesting.
Yeah, but the thing is that the trick about a feature flag is that the true or false value is external to the application that's running it.
Of course.
Right? That's the key. Because you don't want to have to redeploy or change the code. You want to be able to turn that off externally. So we wrote our own because we predated any open source or any services that provide feature flags. But today, LaunchDarkly is a great partner of ours that actually provides feature flags as a service. And we also have the ability to do there's I think feature toggles, and there's other open source feature flag implementations that you can use in your code now. So I would not encourage you to roll your own, just use one of the services that are provided.
Do you have some to recommend? Or?
Yeah, so LaunchDarkly is I'm a big fan of that one, and I think one of the free ones that's really popular is called Feature Toggle, and it's just an open source platform that you can use.
Sure. Okay, thank you. So actually we could talk about this software development all the night, but we are hungry.
Yeah.
And, I would say thank you so much that you came here. This is very nice for our community here.
Awesome.
People told me all the best about talks.
Yeah. No, it was great.
You so much.
Yeah, it was really engaged. You had a lot of good questions, and it was a really fun talk. I enjoyed myself.
Yes,
so
I had to throw the people out.
Yeah, we actually did. Yeah? We actually got told we had to leave.
Hey, thank you so much.
My pleasure.
And see you hopefully soon.
All right, thank you.
Bye.
See you. Cheers.